Hey everyone, welcome to Asian Oddities. I'm Amanda, a Chinese storyteller who specialized in Asian paranormal tales. Today's theme, well, doesn't really have a theme, yup. There are all just creepy experiences shared by Chinese netizens. Hopefully, they'll keep you company for a spooky but fun night. Heads up, this video has jump scares. If you see this little ghost pop up, remember to cover your eyes, because in 5 seconds, a scary image will appear. Alright, enough talking, let's dive right in. This happened a long time ago, but I still remember so much of it clearly because it holds my family's memories and also the pain we never really got over. My family lived in a small town in Binzhou, Shanxi province. In 1990, my parents met and fell in love. The next year, when the osmanthus tree started sprouting new buds, my older brother was born. Happiness filled our little family. And to make things even better, my brother turned out to be this extremely kind kid. He's smart, polite, everyone in the village loved him. Then came 2001. It should have been a joyful year for my family, the year I was born. But before the joy even settled, a nightmare shattered all that happiness. One day, my brothers and his friends went up the mountain to pick mulberries. While running around, his legs suddenly gave out and he fell straight onto the grass. He tried to get up, but couldn't muster any strength. In the end, he clawed at the ground, calling for help. When my dad finally got over, the poor boy was covered in mud, swaying helplessly, his eyes filled with pure panic. He had no idea what was happening to him. Instantly, Dad rushed him to the hospital, but the doctor couldn't figure it out either and suggested going to a bigger hospital in the city. When they came back the next day, Dad's eyes were swollen and dark like he hadn't slept. His trembling hands clutched the diagnosis: progressive muscular atrophy. The doctor said it was a genetic disease that only affects males. His muscle would gradually waste away until even breathing became difficult. And the worst part is, there was no cure. From that moment on, my family fell apart. Grandma blamed everything on Mom because her younger brother, my uncle, had died from the same disease. My brother, of course, understood everything, but at first, he simply refused to believe it. He kept trying to practice standing, holding onto the walls, but nothing helped. His muscles just wouldn't grow anymore, and within a few months, he was completely paralyzed. Dad built a wheelchair for him, hoping it would help him move around and maybe cheer him up. But he only sat in it, staring blankly as Mom breastfed me. Sometimes when I cried, he would shake a rattle and sing to me, but there was always a tremor in his voice. Then I got older. At first, I didn't understand why my brother was always in a wheelchair. I'd go talk to him, but he would suddenly tell me scary ghost stories. Stories so frightening that I didn't dare go to the bathroom at night. In the end, I would wet the bed instead, which earned me his mocking laughter and Mom's scolding. Later, as I grew up, I started bullying him. When he taught me how to write, I would throw the pen away on purpose. Sometimes, he would ask me to pour him a glass of water, and I would pour it on him instead. He couldn't fight back. He'd only tremble with anger and spit in my face. Then I would shove his wheelchair, making him lose balance. His head slapped into the corner of the wall, and blood started seeping out. But even then, he didn't cry. He just stared at me, and the hatred in his eyes were like shards of ice cutting straight through me. Then, in 2008, an ice storm came out of nowhere. Overnight, icicles half a foot long hung from the eaves, and the water vat in the yard froze solid. Everything felt dead and still. And in that silence, I heard my mother crying for my brother. That morning, when I pushed open the door, my brother was lying on the bed. His face was pale, eyes staring at the ceiling, fingers curled unnaturally, as if he were still gripping the armrest of his wheelchair. He was gone. Mom cried until she nearly fainted. Grandpa, with his trembling hand, tried to close his eyes, but it was as if my brother was unwilling to let go. Every time the hand left his face, his eyes would open again. After several tries, Grandpa had to gently place a piece of yellow paper over his face. According to our local customs, you can't hold a proper funeral for a child who died before adulthood. They have to be buried immediately in the mass grave on the back mountain. When people rushed to carry his body out, Mom found his favorite navy blue jacket and gently put it on his thin, bony body. And just like that, he was taken up the mountain and buried that very day. That night, the whole house was drowning in grief. We all went to bed early. I lay there, unable to sleep, feeling this strange emptiness, like someone had yanked out of a piece of our home. Half asleep, I suddenly woke up from the cold. As I opened my eyes, I could see my breath hanging in the air. Why did it suddenly get so cold? At the same time, the ticking of the wall clock grew slower and slower until it finally stopped. The room fell into complete silence. Curious, I got up and looked out the window. Through a thin layer of frost, I could make out a blurry figure. I leaned in for a closer look. It was my brother. He was sitting in his wheelchair, wearing that navy blue jacket, staring straight at me. His hair was dusty with frost, and the scar on his forehead had frozen into a bright, blood-red mark, glowing faintly in the dark. Just as I was feeling surprised, he suddenly floated through the window. The wheelchair rolled across the floor without making a sound. Then, facing my bed, looking at me, he said, "Little sister, come with me to the back mountain. I'll take you to play." I scrambled backward. Then suddenly, he lunged at me and grabbed my arm. The corners of his mouth stretched wide, showing those cold, white teeth. "Scared now? When you pushed me, why weren't you scared?" Then he started pulling me forcefully toward the window. "Come to the back mountain with me. Come on, I'll take you to play." His strength was incredible. I couldn't resist at all. Just as I was about to be dragged out onto the windowsill, Mom suddenly walked in and accidentally dropped a hot water bottle. The steam exploded into the air, wrapping around my brother's shadow. He jerked backward, and with a creak from the wheelchair, he passed straight through the glass and disappeared. But Mom didn't see him. He bent down and touched my forehead, saying, "Sorry I scared you, honey." "Oh, you're burning up. Are you sick?" That's when I really woke up and saw Mom's anxious face. So everything just now was a dream. Thank God, just a dream. Then I fell back into a deep sleep. That night, I developed a high fever. Lying in bed, I was delirious, shouting that I wanted to go play on the back mountain with my brother. The doctor prescribed medicine and put me on an IV, but nothing helped. Finally, with no other options, they called in a shaman from a neighboring town. I vaguely remember sitting on the bed while she circled around me 3 times in a black robe, shaking a bronze bell and muttering things I couldn't understand. Suddenly, she stopped and said, "He's a boy. He didn't want to leave. He wants someone to keep him company." The ritual went on all night. When the yellow paper burned, the smoke was so thick you couldn't open your eyes. The shaman's low murmuring mixed with the wind outside, sounding just like ghosts wailing. Halfway through, a sudden gust of cold wind blew through the door crack, making the candle flames flicker wildly. Saying this, the shaman quickly splashed a bowl of dog's blood on the ground and shouted, "Little ghost, the disease was in your fate. No one's to blame. Your sister is still young. She'll burn you all the paper money you need." Right after she said that, we heard a loud plonk in the yard, like ice shards dropping into a water tank. Then I passed out again. The next day, my fever broke. Mom burned everything my brother had left behind, didn't even keep his socks. After that, it was like it never existed. But at night, I still sometimes heard the faint creaking of a wheelchair, soft, careful, like it didn't want to wake anyone, or like someone sighing quietly. In 2009, when the osmanthus tree in the yard started sprouting buds again, my little sister was born. I held her tiny body in my arm under the tree, basking in the sun. From that year on, I never heard the wheelchair again, because there was a tiny birthmark on my sister's forehead, and I know our family finally began again. I don't know if any of you have ever tried tofu pudding. It's a very traditional Chinese dish, silky soft tofu with sweet or savory toppings, super common, super popular. And the story I'm about to tell you is related to that. Maybe. So back in 2009, a friend came to Zhengzhou to visit me. He complained that the hotel's soundproofing sucked, so he wanted to rent a short-term apartment instead. I found him a place at Qinghua Garden Plaza. After helping him check in, I went downstairs with the landlord to his home to pay the fees. This building had a pretty unique layout. Between the two towers, there was this enclosed glass walkway on the third floor connecting them. And just as we stepped out of the elevator onto the fourth floor, we heard a huge crash. We rushed to look down, and what we saw was absolutely horrifying. The glass on the third floor walkway had shattered, leaving a hole, and lying face down on the walkway was a man in a black suit. Blood was pouring out from under him, all his limbs were twisted at weird angles, and his brain matter was splattered all over the ground. Obviously, he'd fallen to his death. Just as I was turning my eyes away, the landlord next to me suddenly said, "Wow, his head burst open. Looks just like tofu pudding." I was shocked. A man died horrifically right in front of us, and he was cracking jokes. But he didn't stop. He laughed and said, "I'm gonna go home, grab a bowl, and come back for some fresh tofu pudding. What do you guys think?" Some people actually laughed, while others looked at him in disgust. As for me, I just thought he was cold-blooded, but said nothing. I finished up what I needed to do and went my own way. But from that day on, strange things started happening non-stop. First, the elevators. The day after the man died, people noticed that all the elevators kept mysteriously stopping on the third floor, and maintenance couldn't figure out why. After a while, they worked normally again, and then malfunction again, over and over. Second thing, the man in the suit. After 11 at night, a lot of people reported they seen a man in a suit in the elevator facing the corner, not talking, not pressing any buttons, not getting off. It freaked people out, so the property management got tons of complaints. Of course, these were rumors. But what happened next, my friend and I saw it with our own eyes. One night, I came over to hang out with him, and since it got so late, I stayed over. But in the middle of the night, I suddenly heard a scream. Now keep in mind, this was a high-end apartment complex with great soundproofing. But that sound was incredibly clear, like it ignored the walls and shot straight into my ears. I jolted upright, then came the sound of shattering glass, followed by the sickening splat. It was the kind of sound you'd hear if you slam a piece of raw meat onto the ground. By then, a bunch of neighbors had already been woken up. I could hear people in the hallway talking, asking what happened, complaining. So I rushed to open the door and take a look. To my surprise, the impact was way bigger than I thought. Almost everyone in the building was up. But when a few people ran downstairs to check, there was nothing there. Then someone said the residents in the two buildings next door heard it too. How strange. What kind of sound could travel that far? The whole thing just fizzled out. Nobody could find an explanation. Eventually, word spread and people started exaggerating, saying it was the ghost of the man in the suit that hadn't lived. The place was haunted. The next morning, my friend freaked out, of course. He begged to move out immediately, so I planned to take him back to my place. We packed everything up and went to the office on the fourth floor to find the landlord. When we arrived, a few other tenants were already waiting. They were planning to check out as well. Made sense. After what happened, who'd want to stay there? We knocked on the landlord's door, but there was no response. I was about to call him when someone next to me said, "Don't bother, it won't go through. This is my third time trying to find him. I've been calling him since 10 this morning. He's not picking up." I was confused. All these bad thoughts started flooding my mind, but right then, my friend suggested, "Let's just go. We'll come back and deal with this later. I'm not staying in this damn place for even one more second. Okay, so we headed straight downstairs. But honestly, the whole time, I couldn't shake the feeling that something bad was about to happen. But once we finally got out of the building, that feeling went away. I let out a big sigh of relief and took one last look back at the apartment. Well, I shouldn't have done that, because right at that moment, I saw someone fall. Yes, fall, not jump. It looked like he'd been pushed out of the window. We all froze and looked at each other. Another person falling from the building? I immediately called the police and walked closer to get a better look, but I couldn't believe it. It was a landlord. He was still wearing that gray hoodie, but now it was soaked with blood. His body was twisted into an inhuman shape. Brain matter was scattered all around, exactly like the man in the suit we seen that day. The scene was so horrifying that I don't remember much of what happened after. Just the sound of police sirens and them being swept away from the scene by the crowd. The next day, the story made it into the local newspaper. The official announcement: suicide. Cause: unknown. But I happened to have a high school friend who was a cop. Out of curiosity, I texted him. His reply was the same: suicide. But what the paper didn't report was that the police found a note in this apartment. It didn't have any suicide message written on it. Instead, it was covered densely with 3 words repeated over and over: tofu pudding. Those 3 words hit me like a sledgehammer. So, did the landlord get followed by the ghost of the man in the suit because of his disrespectful comments? I'm not sure. But his death was definitely bizarre, and after that, I never set foot in Qinghua Garden Complex again. The landlord, he brought it on himself. At the death saying, you should never see anything disrespectful or showing your compassion for the deceased, or you might get followed. Actually, I did find news coverage of this accident from Sina News. It said, on 29th September 2009, around 1 p.m. at Qinghua Garden Soho Plaza on Nanyang Road, a man fell from the 20th floor of Building A. When he fell, he smashed a hole through the glass on the 3rd floor of the neighboring building, and the man died on the spot. The Criminal Investigation Unit 3 of Jinshui Public Security Bureau said the man's identity had not yet been confirmed, and the cause of the fall was under investigation. Worth mentioning, the building the man fell from and the 3rd floor of the neighboring building were more than 7 meters apart. Could someone really jump that far on purpose? So yeah, this math test was pretty suspicious too. The next story took place on the Douban forum. On August 31st, 2022, a user called Jiang posted, "There seems to be another me in the dorm." But instead of telling a story, she was really asking for help, hoping to get an explanation. Now I put everything she wrote together and will tell it to you in the first person, just like she wrote it. I'm a college student in northern China, and I had just returned to school. Because of COVID, our school set up strict quarantine protocols, so we had to come back a week early for isolation. All our daily necessities had to be ordered on our phones, so on the first day, I planned to stay up until midnight to place an order. At first, the room was quiet. Everyone just focused on their phones. But at 9:40, there was suddenly a knock on the door. Without thinking, I said, "Come in." But seconds later, the door hadn't been pushed open. I immediately sat up and asked, "What's going on? Who's at the door?" Still, no one responded. Then I got a WeChat message from my roommate. "Don't make a sound. Don't know who it is, but in the first few days after we got back, last week, we heard this knocking at night. Very strange. Yeah, Meng even went to open the door. Nobody was there. Then the next day, at the same exact time, it happened again. We thought it was just someone playing a dumb prank, so we ignored it. Just figured we'd catch whoever it was the 3rd night. So on the 3rd day, we stood by the door waiting. At exactly 9:40, Xin yanked the door open. There was nobody outside. But the moment the door opened, we heard the knocking sound again. It was terrifying. We knew something wasn't right, so we locked the door and decided we weren't opening it again, no matter how many times he knocks. Reading this, I couldn't help but feel creeped out too. But I'm a firm atheist. Maybe the school just installed some new equipment that made sounds at the set time, so I comforted them a bit and didn't think much of it. The next day, we did a full dorm cleaning. I even took down my bed curtain and washed it. So that night, without the curtain blocking the light, the mirror on my roommate's desk reflected the hallway light straight into my eyes. I couldn't sleep at all. I was just about to get up and move the mirror when I suddenly saw someone in it. More specifically, a person's back, standing in front of the mirror. I thought it was just one of my roommates, so I didn't think much of it and went back to sleep. The next morning, I kept thinking about what I saw, and then it hit me. The figure in the mirror had their back facing me, which means that person would have been facing me directly. So, was he watching me sleep? Just thinking about it made my whole body tense up. What the hell would someone be doing there in the middle of the night? The next night, I started doing freelance graphic design work. I worked until late, and before going to bed, I went to the bathroom. But when I came back, there was a problem. The door was locked. But I clearly remembered my roommates had already gone to sleep. Who locked it? I knocked, no answer. I knocked again, louder this time, and soon Meng asked from inside, "Who is it?" Who is it? I was a bit confused. But then I thought maybe they were messing with me. We used to play pranks like this all the time, locking people out, so I joked back. Seriously? Bullying a poor, overworked cooperative drone? How cruel. Hurry up and let me in. It's cold out here. A moment later, Meng opened the door. I walked in expecting someone to tease me or at least laugh, but instead, they were all poking their heads out from their beds, staring at me like I'd grown a second head. What? I just went to the bathroom and you already missed me? At this point, Meng sat down with a serious look. Just now when I was lying in bed, I heard sounds from your bed area. I thought it was you. And none of us heard the door open at all, so how did you end up outside? The other roommates nodded along. By then, I felt something was really wrong. But I forced a smile and said, maybe I slammed the door too hard and it locked itself. It's fine, let's just sleep. But I knew for sure it was impossible. If that had really happened, they would have heard the door slam. After I got in bed, I told everything to a friend. But her reply nearly freaked me out. Don't you feel like something is invading your living space? First someone knocking on your door, then someone stood under your bed, and now your roommates heard someone climbing onto your bed? Honestly, she wasn't wrong. The frequency of all this was way too high for me to pretend it was all just a coincidence. That night, I didn't sleep well. Maybe it's that whole you think about it during the day, you dream about it at night thing. I dreamed non-stop. In the dream, I was still in the dorm. I woke up and noticed all my roommates were gone, so I figured I'd walk out to the hallway to check. But the moment I got close to the door, a rhythmic chopping sound burst into my ears, like someone furiously chopping vegetables. I opened the door and the entire hallway had turned into a kitchen, but there was no one there, just a knife chopping by itself. This scene was so eerie that I immediately stepped back into the dorm, but when I turned back, the room looked completely run down and abandoned. The dreamie didn't even flinch, just walked straight into my bed, only to find someone lying on it, their face blurry. "Get off! That's my bed!" The person obediently climbed down, and I lay back down, trying to fall asleep again. When I woke up again, I was still in the dorm, but it was pitch black, like nighttime. Thinking I was awake for real, I got up to grab some water, but I accidentally kicked a stool, loud. At that moment, all of my roommates suddenly shot upright from their beds and stared at me with wide, unblinking eyes. "What's wrong?" No one answered. I backed away toward the door, ready to escape, but when I opened it, the kitchen appeared again, and this time, a woman stood there, her back to me, chopping vegetables. He had long black hair and a pink sweater, but I had never seen her before. So I quietly closed the door and turned around, and my roommates had vanished again. I climbed back into the bed, telling myself, "It's fine, sleep. Once you wake up for real, everything will be normal." When I woke up again, it was afternoon. Sunlight filled the entire room, giving me a warm, comforting feeling. My roommates were all lying on their beds, focusing on their phones. Thank God, everything seemed back to normal. Thinking I was finally awake, I got up to continue working on my drawings, joking to my roommates at the same time. "Guys, I just had the creepiest dream. You were all staring at me like this. Super scary." "Oh, like this?" I froze. Looking up, they were all staring at me again, the exact same way, just like in the dream. That's when panic hit, because I realized I was still dreaming. I turned toward my computer screen. It was filled every inch with my own handwriting. "You're here, you're here, you're here, you're here, you're here, you're here." I freaked out, had no idea what to do. Then I remembered that old saying, "If you fall in a dream, you wake up instantly." Yeah, good idea. So without hesitating, I ran to the balcony and jumped out of the window. Sure enough, I woke up again, in the exact same bright afternoon scene, went through the exact same sequence. I still wasn't awake, so I jumped again and again, over and over, until finally I woke up sitting at my desk. Only this time, the room looked similar to my dorm, but not exactly. Details were off. My bed curtain was gone. I stood next to my bed, confused, and that's when someone suddenly poked their head out from under my blanket and stared straight at me. Nope, still dreaming. So I jumped out the window again. Then I woke up at my desk once more, but this time the whole dorm was pitch black, and everyone was lying in bed on their phones. Suddenly, that chopping sound came back, loud. I knew that pink woman was outside, so I locked the door tight, climbed into bed. Half scared, half exhausted, I eventually passed out. Somewhere between dreaming and waking, I feel someone climbed into my bed. I jerked awake, only to find myself standing in the hallway. From the far end, the chopping started again. The same woman stood there with her back to me, chopping away. I don't know why, but I was terrified of her. I sprinted toward the dorm, pounding on the door, begging them to let me in. The chopping grew louder, closer, and then my phone alarm went off. That's when I finally woke up for real. After that, I was convinced something was wrong. Night after night, I dreamed of the same thing. And the pink woman, she started chasing me, trying to strangle me to death. I posted all of this, hoping someone could give me an explanation. But when I look back on everything, I realized something terrifying. When I wasn't at the dorm yet, my roommates opened the door whenever they heard knocking. But on the night I arrived, when I heard the knock, I said, "Come in." So, did I actually invite something in? And in the dream, it felt like I was reliving everything from a different angle. Like that time I stood under my bed in the dream and someone poked their head out to look. What that person was me? What the figure I saw in the mirror on the first night was also me? Was the door locked by me? Was the knocking also me? And most importantly, was that other me trying to make me believe this cycle and making me do something? That's where the post ended. She later uploaded the thread with a paranormal experience from 3 or 4 years ago, but it wasn't related to this one, so we won't go into it there. But judging from all this, she does seem like the type who easily attracts supernatural things. Looking back to the whole thing, I personally think she might have lost one of her souls, and the wandering soul kept trying to return but failed, so everything it saw bled into her dreams. Honestly, the part that scared me the most was her jumping out the window over and over. If the dream got too deep, too wrested, she might not have been able to tell dream from reality. If that happened, she could have actually jumped for real. Okay, that's all for today's episode. Hope it brings you a happy night. See you next Saturday night. Bye bye.